We are here to talk about black land being stolen over the years. We just saw the video of Miss Opal Lee. She was the activist who led the charge to make June 10th a federal holiday, but her family land was stolen when she was around the age of 12. Fortunately enough, she met some good white people who owned the land, who were who they were, I mean, hell, they were kind enough to her to give her back her land and build a house for her. That's not the typical story. What happened to Opal Lee's family land, the manner in which the land was taken, that's one of the things we're going to concentrate on, because her family land should not have been taken. Because basically, they ramshacked those black people and took their land. They strong armed their land. They threatened their lives, man, beating people, all types of stuff. But they stolen the land from them. And what we do know about black history in America is a lot of the land that black people owned over the years, over the centuries, was taken, and black people were run off their lands. Black people were manipulated. All types of things happened to take black land because there's power in land ownership. Remember, racism is about the acquisition of land, money, power, and wealth and resources. Land, money, power, wealth, and resources. That's what racism is all about. And even if you own the land, you're a private owner, there are laws and amendments and things in place that can basically help the government take your land. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the history of black people getting their land stolen, and why land ownership is so important, especially building off of last week's conversation where the gentleman was talking about black people moving south. Well, if black people move south, you're going to need to own land. So let's get into this land ownership. PC, I want to start with you because you actually have met Opal Lee and you've interacted with her before, but also start with you because the historical perspective that you come from when we're talking about various topics. So let's kick it off, man. Let's talk about this, not necessarily her particular case, but the history of black land being stolen in America. And you're on mute.
I was over there having a party and shit. First of all, I'm glad that she got her house. Glad she was able to repatriate her property. Habitat to Humanity did the right thing once they found out, and I think that the publicity served them well to do the right thing. And I don't think that should be missed, or in terms of like the acts of good deeds being done by those who probably knew who that property belonged to when they inherited it.
Right.
So, that being said, that's the history of free blacks in America, and that truly was part of the Negro problem that that was talked about at the turn of the century. Supposedly when blacks were free from the institution of slavery here in this country, the big problem was we freed these Negroes and we didn't give them any education. We didn't teach them about the economy. We didn't teach them about anything. So we just basically left them out there barren and unskilled and uneducated. And, so they would become a burden to society. So supposedly black people were supposed to become this great need of help. Excuse me. But what we really found out is black people were building economies all throughout the South and the Midwest. And, we focus on, the focus has been on Tulsa, which was monumental in terms of the achievements of black people in that region. But I think that one of the reasons Tulsa is focused on so much is because Tulsa was bombed. Tulsa was massacred. The people of Tulsa was massacred. The people of Tulsa had lost out on their land, even though they came back and rebuilt it. That's one of the reasons. But you look at the South, you had dozens of cities.
It's not the only one. I don't know. Because if that's the reason why people concentrate on it, it's not a good reason. Because Rosewood was literally burnt down. Wilmington, look at the Wilmington on Fire documentary. Like, this is how land was taken, not just from black people, but Native Americans as well. It's one of the ways that land was taken. So if you're going to concentrate just on Tulsa, just because in the manner in which it was taken, you're missing so much. You're not even trying to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, no. And this whole process, because they were very diverse in their tactics in terms of obliterating black access to capital. And Malcolm X once said it, and I think it's great. Land. You need land in order to become a nation of people. You need land. Land is the basis. And so when we had black folk who had land, then the only way to get those black folk off the land was the unscrupulous acts of the white supremacists who currently were jealous of the productivity of black folk, but more so fearful because black people, like I said at that time, were creating economies that which actually made them trading partners to other European countries. So European countries were bypassing white products because all the skilled laborers left those plantations and built their own property. White folk in America weren't skilled laborers. That's why you had to have the Homestead Act. That's why you had to have all this reaching out to Ireland and reaching out to Italy and reaching out to all those different Poland and bringing all those immigrants over here to replace the skilled labor that was lost on the plantation. That's why you had those workers' unions that were created and generated, and why you had the uprising or the riots, excuse me, or the racial massacres that happened in places like East St. Louis, Missouri. East St. Louis, Illinois. You know, we can go around the country and look at all the black wealth that was stolen based on that the black farmers themselves are still have not been repatriated for all the land that was taken from them over the last century. So this is a process that's been ongoing. And so when we talk about nation building, we have to be clear about something.
What we need.
Too many of us have been unintentional about how we build it, and how we maintain it, and how we protect it. There's too many of us want to pretend that we're not at war until war has been declared on us in our community. Then, and only then, after the fact, when the bodies were lost, when the people had to be purged from their lands. Because let's not forget, the upward migration, northern migration of a lot of blacks, a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were running from these towns that were burned down for their lives. That's where the whole concept of hobos, a lot of hobos and so forth. These were black men who got on these trains and were freight cars and riding up through the south to cities like Detroit, to cities like Chicago, the cities like Philadelphia, the cities like New York and Boston to find an opportunity because those opportunities were lost down there. So we have a lot. It's a lot in this bag.
Oh, yeah.
But the biggest part about it is our folk, and I will say this, a lot of our ancestors and elders were not up to speed in terms of understanding their enemy, understanding the danger, and also understanding how important it was to protect what you own. If you can't protect it, then you don't own it. And so I'm going to end my plane there for now.
Yeah. Now, great points, because basically what I want to get to, why land is important. Land is power. And people have to understand that land is power. White folk didn't come from Europe all the way over here to the Western Hemisphere just to say, all right, well, we got some land. No, that land yielded them power. And that land also yielded them resources, which led to wealth, which leads to money.
One more thing, Joe. They came over here intentionally,
right,
to accrue enough wealth
to build up the Portuguese, well, specifically the Spanish and the Portuguese empires.
to build up the institution of white supremacy.
That too.
Let's not forget what made it over here when Cristobal Columbus made his patron voyage to America.
Yes.
What portrait he had?
Yeah.
You know, he had the Last Supper that was commissioned by Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain at the time. That was commissioned by them in a direct response to establish the New World Order through America. That was going to be the bastion of white supremacy as they had finally evicted the Moors who at that particular time, during 7/11, the year of 7/11,
Yeah, they
had
went
conquered
yeah.
Southern European countries.
Tariq Ibn Ziyad took them boys in there. Yeah, so
Right.
1492 was the fall of the Moorish Empire. The Europeans was able to take over. A transatlantic slave trade started, but they, like you said, they came to the Western Hemisphere for the land, and they stopped off in Africa and used the people as the labor to develop the land. Of course, they tried with the Native Americans first. That didn't work. They tried to indenture white servants from Europe. That didn't work. They was like, hey, we ain't doing this. And then they got African slaves, and that worked the best for them. But it's all about that power. It's all about the power and the resources that people would need. So Pat, let's get in here, man.
What up?
Why from your, give us your historical perspective, because we're talking about it from a broad lens, but let's talk about it from a more specific lens, like private property versus like farmland, and what's your historical knowledge on like black private property and black farmland being taken by white people, U.S. government, or various entities, racist entities? Let's get into it. Tell us what we need.
Well, first off, I'm not going to let you Negroes do this. Okay.
Why? Because we are three different shades of brown. You got to talk to us like that.
Yes, because first and foremost, what those white people did for that sweet, kind, elderly elder who will probably be dead in the next few years and they can repossess the house, is they gave her peace in her last years. And they also got years upon decades of solid publicity that they could milk out of this.
Yeah.
They also soothed the intense sense of white guilt that the story brought up to them. So now when they take the property back, they're going to feel good about themselves as they continue to do what they've been doing with the property. So, and it might not even be these white people. It might be another group of white people that's going to take the property back. But we do know at some point in time, some white person is going to take the property back. And they're going to do it guilt-free. And so, like, what they have done is a masterclass in strategy and cultural manipulation. And I'm not gonna sit here and let you guys besmirch and impugn the honor of the American collective. We're not gonna do that. They didn't fall on Plymouth Rock. Ain't that what they say? Ain't that what they something about the rock from Plymouth?
Oh, I want to get back to besmirch because I ain't never be nothing but on time.
You didn't besmirch before. Look, I think honestly, it's always a lot to get into, especially when you talk about the land that's been taken from black people in America. Especially from the farming class of black people in America. That class has been shrinking dramatically.
Yes.
Over the last few years. Over the last few decades. And a large cause of that is because of inadequate resources to do what they need to do with the land. And the American government in several states, local governments in several states have rules on the book that say that if you aren't properly utilizing and developing your land,
We can
they
take it.
can and in fact will take it from you.
What's that called?
Eminent domain.
Yes, we're gonna
Yes.
get into it, and we're gonna get into that. But go ahead.
So, and that's another concept that you got to understand. See, we really need to, like, this conversation about sovereignty now becomes the heart of this.
Yes.
What is a sovereign
Let
state
me write that down.
versus a sovereign government, a sovereign entity? Are you a sovereign individual?
Not
You
if
know
your
what I'm
land can be
saying?
taken, you're not sovereign.
Right, right. So we get into this state of what it means to be a citizen of a country, and now we're having these high level, deep conversations about what it means to even exist in the world that we exist in,
Well,
where you could buy land, pay for it with all your money, and the government say, "Nah, you ain't using that right. Give it here."
yeah, yeah. But that's power.
Yeah.
It's nothing more, nothing less. It's we have power, and you don't. That's why we allow you to exist within, like Prince Sulla said, within our corporation.
But we acquiesce, and that's the part that we need to understand, right? We have all acquiesced to it to an extent.
Yes.
And so that's a part of the conversation that is difficult to navigate, because the people that don't want to accept that they are a part of the system don't want to have that conversation.
If you're not a part of the system, then you homeless.
Now, even if you're homeless, you're a part of the system. The only way you're not a part of the system is if you're literally living out in the woods somewhere, making your own lifestyle, and you're doing that illegally.
Yeah, because I was going to say they can come take that anytime they want to.
Oh, yeah. If you exist within this country, and this is where, again, we get back into this concept of sovereignty, which is why it is so important to be able to defend your stuff. So I was going to cuss, but I corrected it. Because you're not like that. You're not sovereign if you can't stop me from taking it. At the core of sovereignty, at the core of you being your own individual, is your ability to defend your agency. If you can't defend your agency,
you're not what you think you are. Mr. Big Stuff. Then I need that sound back. Who do you think you are? I need that sound back. But no, but that's real though, because so let me read something. And this is from the American Bar Association, and it's Civil Rights and Justice, the contemporary relevance of the historic black land lost. And it says, at the close of the Civil War, Black Americans owned very little farmland, but began acquiring it at a rapid pace. So that by 1910, Black farmers owned more than 16 million acres. This, however, would be the peak of Black farmland ownership in the United States, as the 20th century oversaw the rapid dispossession of Black-owned agricultural acreage. In addition to the theft by state-sanctioned violence, intimidation, and lynching Black farmers, also lost land due to discrimination by banks and financial institutions through the denial of access to federal farm benefits by local administrators who funded those benefits to white farm owners through forced partition sales brought about by predatory third parties, through government misuse of eminent domain, including many cases in which Black landowners were compensated well below market value through discriminatory tax assessments and non-competitive tax sales, and through long-standing coordinated discrimination by U.S. Department of Agriculture agents who wield power and control over access and credit essential resources. By 1997, Black farmers lost more than 90% of the 16 million acres owned by 1910. So they did a cumulative result of the value of the land lost. And they basically it's $326 billion as far as the total cumulative of the total land that was lost. And so basically that would put just those farmers, if they could have held on to that land, that would have put them as far as the 41st ranked country as far as GDP. So $326 billion. But 90% by 1997, so between 1920 and 1997, 90% of those 16 million acres were gone. And it's through various means. like they said, through intimidation, through killing people, through federal swindling, through all types of stuff that black people had their land taken. And I guess you can put this under the, of course, it's under the whole banner of white supremacy, but people like the subcategories, I guess you could say economic injustice and things like that, or not economic, excuse me, environmental injustice, environmental racism. But we need.
Before you go on, can I address that point you just made?
Go ahead.
Because let's examine this for a second. And this is the seriousness of this matter. Black people lost, just the farmland alone.
Yeah, that was just farmland.
90%, right? And you mentioned through various means. Let's talk about the organization that took place here. To build infrastructure, roads, to bypass these towns, to make the land less valuable. Let's talk about the fact that, okay, you had dams that were resurrected, waterways redirected, so that they would flood some of these towns. Let's talk about how you had gangsters just rolling up, committing mass genocides in these particular areas. That's what it was. And the organization of it all. But yet and still, when you tell black folk, we need to organize, we need to have think tanks, we need to be able to understand and don't underestimate our enemy.
Policy, all that.
We want to have people who soft shoe it, people who redirect or deflect with different language, softer language, so it's less offensive to people who don't have a problem unaliving you, your cattle, your children, your families, and uprooting you from wherever you are to leave you destitute, if not already dead. This is what we're up against, and we're still up against it. And yet and still, we would rather spend our time bickering over the accusations of a popular comedian than actually put our energy and effort into design and think tanks so that we ourselves can not only prepare for a community, but also have the information and the data necessary so that we can recognize the dangers that lie just outside of our eyesight, outside of our vision, our ability to utilize our imagination. Because as Patrick often say, people suffer from a lack of imagination. And we consistently cannot imagine the same people that did devilish shit to us in the past to do it to us again, as they're currently doing it to us now.